a real pleasure to have you here from your organization On Your Feet. I just saw a wonderful presentation you gave on the stage here at New York City Center. Could you tell us a little bit more about your work and the work of pulling people out of comfort zones and really helping them find their innovation potential?
Sure. Should I go first?
Sure.
Okay. We get to wear T-shirts, so we pull ourselves out of our comfort zones all the time. Our work focuses on the art form of improvisation, and it's an art form, and it's improv theater in particular. So these are folks that have sort of go to the theater, they get up on stage, and they're essentially have no plan, have no script. Their objective is to create a product, though, and it's to create a product of a story. So it's an art form, and in its own right, it's known as just a piece of entertainment, and people follow it. We've taken the ideas and the practices that improvisers use, because we've noticed a lot of utility in their behavior on how they create and co-create, and we've taken them off stage, and we use them with organizations, both large and small.
There's this great quote from Plato, which is, you can learn more about somebody in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. And we love that idea, and think that people can also learn more about themselves in an hour of play. So we don't think of play as something that's ancillary to work. We think that being able to bring a spirit of play and your most genuine self to your work is going to allow you to do better work. When you're talking about the innovation space, you need to be bringing different disparate experiences together that you've had and those of other people, and collide them in new ways, and we think play is a much more productive way to do that than sitting around a long table with a whiteboard.
Sure. Tell me, is the work of improv and innovation, is it more or less relevant in this business environment?
Oh, in the current environment, I would say it's incredibly relevant. We work with a lot of clients, and the way that they think is in terms of sort of 5, 10, 15-year plans. And so they spend a lot of time and thought around the sort of thinking strategically about that. And inevitably what happens is everything, or not everything, but sometimes everything they've planned for changes. And so our thinking is that you should actually find ways to get comfortable and actually thrive under those changing conditions versus be afraid of them, plan for something, and then go, now what? Because if it's not the plan. And improvisers are incredibly comfortable with uncertainty. So for us, having folks practice improv and get comfortable with the uncertainty to a point where improvisers, they go towards it like moss to flame. They're like, bring on the uncertainty. That's where the juice is. That's where the fun is. And that's where the ideas happen in those uncertain moments. So it shifts the sort of approach to uncertainty from being something to be afraid of to something to embrace.
Okay.
That's right. We spoke about this idea of offers in our presentation that you just saw. And improvisers go onto the stage with this idea that everything is an offer. And so a lot of times, even in our business, when something happens that on the surface you could interpret as negative, for example, say a job cancels that we were really excited about doing, sometimes we'll say, what's the offer here?
What can you use that? Where's the opportunity in that? Maybe the opportunity is it canceled last minute. The opportunity is to get better at understanding what the client's needs and issues were, so we would have been able to hedge that off earlier. So the opportunity is to do that next time. It's not about every cloud has a silver lining. It's about what can you use here? Constantly asking that question. And that's a question that anybody who innovates should be asking.
It sounds like you ask companies and individuals to revisit their own assumptions. Gary, as you were saying, companies and strategic plans tend to bite off blocks of 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, and it seems much of what's on an executive's agenda these days are things that they've had in motion for a long time. There might be assumptions or there might be priorities that have just been going on and on and on, but it sounds as if part of your work is to arrest people, stop, get them to think, and perhaps to reassess what their priorities are and how they're spending their time and their focus.
Potentially, because you've got focus 5 years from now, you've got focus on what's happening in the moment. And I think it's an executive's job to be able to be skillful in both of those things. improvisers are really, really skillful at understanding what's happening in the moment and using it, as we said, as an opportunity. So I think this skill that we're offering to executives, and we're not saying abandon plans, because that's also a bit to the extreme, but also get comfortable with the plan changing, get smart, and have some practice on what do you do when things completely shift.
Okay. Is improv something that you sort of do on the fly or in a moment of crisis, or is there some more methodical application of improv in more of a planned way? I mean, can you build improv into a corporate strategy session? Can you build improv into how you work or engage or communicate with customers and/or your own workforce?
I think there are a lot of behaviors and best practices that can be a constant for any individual to learn, and for teams in the way that they interact with each other. So for corporate strategy, for example, we have a lot of ideation techniques that we play with that draw from the world of improv, that kind of focus on people getting further away from their own worlds to think about ideas differently, focusing from somewhere else, much like an improviser takes a suggestion from the audience and makes that into the story. It helps people see things differently. But also I think that there are ways to kind of institutionalize behaving like an improviser.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
Run meetings.
Exactly. So for example, if you are bringing new teams together, you could do worse than getting them versed and skilled at how to improvise together, how to actually co-create and collaborate like improvisers do to create the conditions for whatever may come their way next. Improv is a great thing to use at the beginning of formation of teams and of work. And at the same time, it's also good when you hit the wall. So you suddenly hit the wall, you're like, we've thought about the idea of cold. Let's say we're trying to market beer, and we thought about the idea of cold until we're just, no pun intended, blue in the face. Sorry, that's the end of the comedy. There wasn't much of it. And so you've got these guys just kind of going, oh my gosh, how do we think about cold differently? The idea of shaking it up and bringing in folks like us, but there's other folks that do this work too, that can help people sort of get away from themselves, get out of their own way. They're way too close to the thing. There's lots of things that people do that get in their own way around ideas when they get stuck. So this is a good these are good behaviors to look at in beginnings and in stuck moments. And also when you've got disparate and silos. So you've got teams that need to be working together better but don't. Because there is a whole other opportunity that improv can help.